never, ever, ever trust a lady from the lake. In every horror movie,
Dry women only.
there's
That's
a
the
lady
rule.
of the lake.
No,
or lady
that's a
from
good
the lake,
tip.
and
Exactly.
all she does is pull you in the lake and kill you.
Yeah. Her
Don't
sirens are having you crash your ship upon the rocks and dragging it to the
Women
deep.
in water, don't trust them.
No, exactly.
In history, I'm not saying
far away.
nowadays. If there's a girl on jet ski that wants to take you out, go for it.
Even then, actually, especially then, double so.
Like the jet ski?
Yeah. If some chick drives by on the dock on a jet ski, why don't you hop on? That's more of a trap than a siren. You be careful of that shit.
But have you ever been on a jet ski? Anyone?
Nope.
Yes.
Yeah. What'd you think? Welcome to the Dylan and Joe Basement Podcasts. We're your hosts, Dylan
And Joe. Welcome, everybody. Keep your spell books wide open. Put your hats where they belong, probably on your head, unless you're the servant and not the master. And keep it where it belongs. You sweep that floor. What are we talking about today, Dylan?
Today, we're talking about wizards with one of our newest and most famous, renowned guests, Matt J. Wotton. Say hi to everyone, Matt.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to talk about some wizardry tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, man.
Matt is the leading expert that we know regarding wizards.
Nice.
So we couldn't think of anyone better to have on the podcast today for you guys.
Wow.
As you folks know, we only have experts on because we're not the experts. We have to have people on to, kind of prop us up. And Matt's just the guy. We've been playing phone tag for a couple of weeks, but we're so glad you made it for our 25th episode, Matt. That's wizards. Welcome to the basement, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That's a good milestone, guys.
Yeah, see if we can't keep trucking to 30.
Yeah. So Matt, when did you first start getting excited about wizards? When did this all start for you?
That's actually pretty funny. I actually started at a very young age getting excited about wizardry and fantasy. My dad actually was super into like computer games, and he played a lot of fantasy computer games. And he had a D&D fantasy game called Baldur's Gate.
Oh,
that I watched him as I grew up at about the age of 10 years old. And I just loved the storyline. I loved the characters, and I just loved the fantasy aspect of it. So actually, I first got into just really having an interest in just all things wizardry because late at night, I would actually sneak on because I wasn't actually allowed to play this game. I was only allowed to watch it. And I would play this game, and it was super fun. It was set in the D&D world. And the first character I actually became was a wizard because in the D&D world, you can choose any type of class. Yeah, exactly. And I just thought it was so cool that you could just kind of create any sort of, elements or anything with your mind, which was really cool. And that's kind of how I started, was just at the young age of just sneaking on and playing computer games late at night.
Hell yeah, man. We knew you got in trouble. That's why we had you on.
Yeah, I like about you. This is going on the internet, so your dad's going to find out.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's going to find out about this. Yeah.
So can you fill in, I was going to say,
That's pretty cool, though. You've been a wizard for life this whole time, even from the first time you ever had the chance to choose what kind of person you want to be in that world. You go, I'm a wizard.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a magic user.
Sorry,
what were you going to say, Dylan?
Oh, I was going to say, I was going to try to lie through my beard or teeth and say, I was going to ask Matt to fill us in on what D&D means for our listeners. Actually mean for me.
Worth mentioning.
Yeah, so it's short for Dungeons and Dragons.
There we go. And Dungeons and Dragons is start off as books or video games?
Books original board game, actually. Yeah. So it started off as a board game. And I remember my dad used to say that my dad's mom used to think it was literally witchcraft. Like, so he would have
Oh,
to
that might
actually
come up
speak
later.
and play it. Yeah. Yeah. So Dungeons and Dragons, and it's set in the Forgotten Realms, which is I guess you would call plane in the Dungeons and Dragons world. So
Nice. There we go.
Shit.
Joe, do you have any experience with wizards before this?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of wizards ever since I started learning about fantasy and things like that. But the first wizard I ever probably took interest in was Obi-Wan Kenobi in Tatooine. I know that's a space wizard, doesn't really count as much, but I immediately was drawn to him and the idea of this wise old man. And then moving on to video games and movies like Lord of the Rings, I start to get really into like that whole concept. Usually when I'm picking my character in games like that, I don't usually go for the wizard because that's usually for like the second or third try. It's pretty tough to be a wizard. I mean, it takes a lot of effort and learning, and you have to figure out all these weird ways to act rather than just being the guy with the big giant sword and just whack people on the head. It's the easiest. The path of the wizard is a little bit more nuanced. And as we go into what wizards are today and the history of them and shit like that, I think we'll realize that it's the wizard isn't just the idea of using magic. It's the experience and the discipline of having to learn it. And sometimes people don't think that's very cool when you do shit like that, and you end up looking like Dylan does right now.
Well, the interesting thing is, on top of the wild insult from Joe, I mean, my ladies here are
magical firebolt fired.
Me and my ladies are not impressed.
Oh yeah, can you move so we can take a look at your lovely druids or whoever you got going on? Sorry.
Well, the thing I was going to say, because this all relates to what Matt said, what you said, is is that we're all coming from a little bit of a different perspective regarding wizards. So
yeah, why don't you give us your 2 cents on it, because I think you were pretty averse to the topic when I first brought it up. You don't have a whole lot of history with wizards yourself.
I'm glad you asked, because I was never a big fantasy guy, but what the ladies behind me are kind of expressing is paganism. And wizards stem all the way back to Egypt, but that's not pagan. But overall, I'm a pagan wizard today, and so these are my pagan. There's a word.
Apostles.
Sure, we'll call them that.
Nymphs.
Yeah. So that, and then my only other experience would be obviously video games and Skyrim. And it was always a level of intelligence that I was yet lacking at the time to be a really, really good Skyrim player with magic. It was always a little hard for me.
Yeah, like I said, it's a tougher way. It's a tougher path to tread, but
it's more reward. If you can do it, you're next level. I hated versing people in every video game who were better at magic than me, because I typically went right for the more agile swords and stuff like that. So that would be my way of doing things. But yeah, that's my background.
Yeah. And I think that the agile sword is the coolest way to be. We'll get into it, see if we can argue about how cool wizards are yet later in the podcast.
Matt, you will. We're gonna have to. Yeah.
Clouds in the sky. Without warning, a wizard walks by. Casting its shadow, weaving his spell. From great clothes, twinkling bell. Never talking, just keeps walking. 'Cause in his magic.
So why don't we each 3 of us say what a wizard is to us before I start droning on about the history of it, starting with, of course, its tradition, Egypt. What is a wizard to you guys? I thought of the most basic form of what I thought it was is just a blanket statement, and then you guys can maybe say what more things you think of wizards. I thought of it, wizards are practitioners of magic, also known as sorcerers and magicians. Typically, they're old men with a robe and a long beard, but really anyone can be a wizard. That's just generally what I think of a wizard is. And it's not solely based on a gender type, so not like a witches and warlocks thing. It's just a wizard. You're a magic user. But I usually think of it as someone who has more experience, not like your first day. You're not a wizard. I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
No, I agree. I think of someone that's definitely older, like wise, The first thing that
Visiting.
obviously comes to my head is definitely just like an old guy with a beard, that has otherworldly powers.
Yeah.
But it can certainly be, all gender types, in my opinion.
Could be an old lady with a beard,
Yeah,
for example.
exactly.
I don't know, Dylan. Did you ever have any other ideas about wizards rather than that? I mean, that seems like a pretty generalized thing of what a wizard
So
is.
I don't have
Yeah.
any other ideas, but I do have it put into one word,
Let's hear it.
and that word is Gandalf.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
He's
Okay. Yeah.
archetype.
Thank you. I'm
Yep.
glad you brought that up.
Yep.
It is.
He's,
I
he's-
mean,
he's the wizard that I would go to. He's everything that I thought a wizard was, and
mhm.
I do happen to think that that a wizard is a male from birth.
Okay.
And yeah, because there's once we get into different realms of things, the women just have a different name for things. They're kind of like the witch in the woods would be the equivalent of like the male wizard.
Sure.
You go,
Yeah.
you get an older person, typically gray hair. We like the robe, but they don't have to wear a robe. And have a much wizard, like you said, stems from the word wise. Someone who's all knowing and through experience, aka Gandalf. And that'd be what I'd think.
Yeah, I think that we'll talk about Gandalf and also all kinds of famous wizards at some point. Of course, we have to. But I think that it definitely, on your point, that he is like the archetype that many people have based their wizard ideas off of. I think things like Dungeons and Dragons and Skyrim and newer forms of media look to Gandalf. That is like the prototype wizard character. That's what a lot of people think of. I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of past lore well before Lord of the Rings was written. But when people think of a wizard, they think of Gandalf the Grey. That's just the way they think.
Yep.
He's the gold standard or the gray standard of what a wizard is.
Well, the gold standard I've heard is Merlin, but I guess we'll debate that.
Oh, well, that's a good point. That's a good point. So I want to hash out the details in the real world before we get into the full fantasy world, because this is a educational edutainment podcast, of course. It's very little laughs. It's mostly facts. Okay. Hit the jingle. So practicing magic is the main archetype of what a wizard is. You got to practice magic. You're not a wizard. Then you're just a scary old man in the woods, which is going to happen to me in about 40, 50 years from now. So that comes in the past of humanity. It's been around forever. Like we talk about all the time. Ancient Mesopotamia is the first place we see the practicing of magic. They used to use magic or rituals in defense against demons and ghosts. Another idea that's been around, in perpetuity when humanity started. They believed that magic could be used for good or evil, and they did believe in sorcery. So even at that time, Mesopotamia, they did believe like sorcerers and wizards could exist and people could learn these powers. The ritual that they performed a lot of the time was called Serpu, also known as burning, or also known as the least popular Knight of the Round Table. I didn't even write that. I just thought that right now. So stupid. So that what they would do in that process was they would transfer all of their guilt for misdeeds, another trope that we still even do today in ritual, and they would put all those things into a tuft of wool or an onion. They'd take all the negative things they've done, they transpose that onto an object, and then they would burn it all to purify themselves of their guilt, their misdeeds, their sins, and things like that. And they'd use an incantation bowl and a mix of ingredients that is still used a lot with magic practices and things like that today. You have the bowl, all the ingredients, double bubble, toil and trouble, that whole thing. So that goes back even to the cradle of civilization in Mesopotamia. As long as humans have been around, they've been practicing magic, which means the earliest wizards were some of the earliest people in civilization. You ever heard of magic that old, Dylan?
I certainly have. Everything happens to go back to Mesopotamia and Egypt and Babylon and all these other places. It's where everything we talk about starts.
Yeah. No matter what subject we bring up each week, we brought up anything, and then it's immediately what happened. Oh, Egypt. It's like they got the first dibs on everything just because they were born earlier. It's
exactly. And and I want to have a little open discussion on one sentence.
Please.
If that's all right with everybody, because this is freaking hilarious. So there are a couple different stories coming out of Egypt from like the court of Khufu and other stuff.
Mhm.
One thing is, it was written. It's in Berlin, Germany, right now in a museum, and it's called the Westcar Papyrus. Has anybody ever heard of this?
No, I have not.
No.
Okay, all right. So there's a couple different topics on there, and then one tale specifically talks about a wizard, and it's in a museum. And this is all it says: an unarmed scribe used magic to make a wax crocodile for the purpose of catching the man whom his wife was having an affair with. Why go
Okay.
straight to
It's a lot to
crocodile?
unpack.
Crocodile.
So
Like, I'm
you
not-
use magic to make a wax crocodile, because although that might be very difficult to do, I don't think you need magic to make a wax crocodile.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's,
I don't
it's
think
in
you would.
writing.
Make a real crocodile appear. That'd be magic.
That's what I was thinking, but this is
No,
this
that's
is
true.
just the way, this is the way it's written, and this is
You don't
just
need magic to that.
I don't know. I mean, maybe he just appeared. Basically, let's just say a fake crocodile. But where did he put the crocodile? I mean, why would you make a
I don't
fake
know.
crocodile to catch someone who's like with your wife?
Maybe he put it in the foyer and thought it would scare them away when they came home from their escapades together. I can't imagine
Maybe.
how that would help.
Or hopefully, I'm thinking that he created some cool scenario like, "Hey, it's me. I'm gonna be." We can't text back then, but like, "Hey,
For some time after. They didn't even
I'll
have
be-
paper, as you said. It was written on papyrus.
I'll be in my bed. Oh yeah, no, she wrote him a letter. I'll be in my bed under the covers. Come get me. And then the guy opens it and it's a crocodile. And then he screams and runs away. I'm hoping-
It jumps out like a snake out of a can. Gotcha.
Yeah, yes, yep. I'm hoping that's
Adulterer.
with the wax crocodile.
Adulterer.
Oh man.
That's wacky. But yeah, in the same tradition, years later, Egypt did the exact same thing. They started practicing magic themselves. They thought that magic was personified by their god Heka, and high priests and peasants alike would perform magic. So it wasn't a, solidarity thing in Egypt that you could actually have to be important enough or highborn enough. I mean, they had the high priest doing rituals to the gods, and they had people in their own hovels, doing slave work that were still doing magic themselves. It wasn't completely cut off from the poorer folks, which in the future of magic practice like that, it definitely would be, or at least from people who were not deemed worthy of being able to practice things like that. So they believed in the duat, which is basically their afterlife, otherworld, underworld kind of deal. And they had something called the Book of the Dead, which people will recognize now as in things such as Evil Dead as the Necronomicon. But their Book of the Dead
Nice.
is a collection of spells and incantations intended to assist the dead on their journey through the duat. So you can already see two things that are magic using that are a lot of religious overtones we think of now. First of all, taking your guilt and your misdeeds away and offering them up to the afterlife, and then taking, steps to try to make sure that your loved ones that have passed away are going to have a safe journey to the afterlife, which is another way of practicing magic and ritualistically, even back in Egypt there.
No, it's fine. One of the things that I actually believe in, I mean, Joe, I'm a practicing Christian.
Mhm.
And so one of the things I do on Tuesday nights is we're studying the Old Testament, and we're learning about Egypt. And we're learning about specifically right now the 10 plagues of Egypt. And
that's one of the heavy hitters of the Old Testament. That's got to be like
Mhm.
on the list of things you got to talk about, man. The
Yeah,
plagues.
exactly. And I think one of the things that I find interesting is, in my practicing of it as a Christian, God bestowed these, I don't know if you'd call them wizardly powers to Moses, but abilities that he was able to perform in front of Pharaoh. And it's recorded in the Bible that, some of these court priests could perform some of these, I guess, powers that Moses was performing, but not all of them, So that's something that I think was quite interesting as I'm learning through this passage in the Old Testament,
Yeah, that's an
Because-
ancient wizard right there, doing things
Yeah,
like
exactly.
turning your staff into a snake,
Yes.
I mean, that's some wizard stuff right there. If I ever
Yeah,
heard
no, you went to Catholic school. You know the Old Testament.
Yeah, I know a couple of the stories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Matt, we reference the Old Testament like almost every podcast because there's so much interesting stuff in it.
Yes.
In comparison with other scriptures of the same time, which happen to all tell a very similar story, there's a lot there that needs to be studied more, and we feel the same completely.
Yeah, I find it very fascinating. There's a lot of prophetic things in the Old Testament that I find interesting.
Besides just the prophets, you mean? There's a lot of those too.
Yeah. Yes,
well, in their ability 2,000 years ago or more to be able to fully understand the perils of society and human behavior that applies directly to today's day, with even most things down to cell phones, is pretty mind-blowing. Because most of the time, as you guys know, we talk about ancient things. The Old Testament is one of the few recordings of the ancient times back then. So it's something. So yeah, having wizardly powers of Moses, like separating the waters there in the Red Sea.
Yeah. Red Sea. Yep.
Red Sea.
Etsy.
No, not Etsy. And it's something. So like, one of the things that really got me interested once I started listening to a couple days ago about wizards and stuff like that is how much this stems from reality or from history. That made what we think of wizards today is that these people, this was somebody's whole life that it was spent doing stuff like this.
Yeah,
I think that's interesting.
As far back as you can see, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting in that way.
I'll tell you right now,
I
wish just a fucking elder in my neighborhood or community that you could just go to with all your problems. And they had to be like, do this, and you go, thank you, all right, and then you do it. And
drink this blood and have this like incense in it, light it on fire.
Even easier.
Spin around 3 times and blow the whistle, and then all your problems are gone.
I was thinking of Gandalf, but that's even better, Joe. Is that you have really sophisticated human problems, relationships, work, fucking all this other shit, money, whatever.
Universal problems.
And they don't just go, this is what you have to do. They go, here, drink this. And it goes away. But easy, done. Great. I would pay $1 million for that. I don't have $1 million, but that'd be great.
But you wouldn't get it.
Beautiful thing. Just here, drink this. You're gonna feel like, you might not even feel like shit. Just drink it and it'll be good. Great. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it truly helps people a lot of the time, especially back then. People were fully invested. I don't know how much of that has to do with the placebo effect or really buying in. Because, I mean, if people are totally in and believing in something, especially in a whole group of people, it can have real physiological differences in yourself. And if you have real ailments, there's some ways that it can solve that through your body willing it to go away. But a lot of times I think that people would have psychological issues or interpersonal issues. And as long as you can follow the ideas of these wise people, it might help you out. I mean, maybe if you drink, whatever, Eye of Newt and, what's this called? Frankincense or whatever you have in there, it might not actually help you get along better with your wife. But if you believe it is and you're taking the advice for it, in some sense, it is working. And I don't know if that's magic or not, but results speak for themselves when they do.
And that all being said, I don't know if either of you own frankincense and myrrh, but there's a reason.
No, just gold. Just gold.
I have some frankincense.
You do have frankincense?
Yeah, no, my mom's an ambassador for Young Living. It's an essential oil company. So we have some frankincense, and
that's
it's really
fantastic.
good for you.
Dylan, what do you think the odds were that we're gonna have frankincense? I thought it was probably 0.
I don't know, because I don't know what they put in the incense in church and stuff like that. But I do know I have frankincense and myrrh in one thing that I got from Whole Foods. And I wear it all the time. It's one of my favorite smells. I understand. It's like the first time I had a cigarette ever in my life. I was like, I'll give it a shot. I took a rip and I was like, yeah, 100% understand why people smoke cigarettes and die from this.
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
100% got it. And then same thing. I'm like, well, why did they give Jesus frankincense and myrrh? And then I put it on at Whole Foods and I was like, yes.
This is why.
Makes sense.
This is exactly why.
Yeah, this smells awesome. I get it. Thank you. Yeah,
also, at the time, it was a lot harder to get those things. You couldn't just go to Whole Foods.
It was very expensive.
You didn't have Whole Foods back then? You can't just go to Whole Foods?
I don't think
What a wonderful world we live in now. You can just stroll right by the grocery store, pick up some frankincense and myrrh,
Yeah.
Gold's still difficult to come by.
Yeah. If you know what you're doing. Oh, that's awesome. So,
For sure.
so we're at Egypt. We're at the Old Testament. What's next, Joe? Where are we going with this?
Yeah, I
You
just
had
figured
any
I'd round
insight?
out the history on the part of history when I start thinking of wizards. When I think of wizards, I don't think of Egypt, Sumeria. I don't think of any ancient thing like that. I think of the Middle Ages or medieval times, the transition from the ancient world into what we now know as like a more globalized modern world. And that has to do with the classic tropes, the knights in shining armor, the castles, the wizards in the woods,
Yep.
all that kind of deal. And that started to come about, like I said, around medieval times. But again, they're gonna have to tie in a million times, because as the world changes and as religion changes, things like practicing private magic don't become as popular. So with the growth of Christianity sweeping across of Western Europe, and the old magics of each of these different nations that weren't really nations at the time, as tribes of people or societies, it starts to kind of butt heads with each other, and kind of it gets pushed underground or gets adopted by Christianity as part of the rituals of the time. That period is when they first come up with the idea of there being 4 elements of the world, which is a huge part of magic now, whether it's movies, video games, novels, whatever. And those 4 elements being earth, wind, and fire, and water. But hit the September.
Yeah.
So yeah, geomancy, hydromancy, aeromancy, and pyromancy, those 4 ideas that you could actually have control of these elements and change the world in that way, which they'd be doing whatever science is at the time. A lot of times they'd say that there's 4 natural elements of the world, or the parts of the world that we can see with our eyes and hear with our ears. It's earth, wind, fire, and water. And I thought that always had a lot to do with, tied in with magic, because now when you think about magic and things like that, it's like Avatar, The Last Airbender, right, Matt? It's like, what one of those are you going to choose to use your magic to use?
Exactly. Yep.
Those are like the natural, they call them bending in Avatar, but it's basically magic. It's whatever you're going to use: fire, water. What's your poison here? And that actually leads us into what we're going to talk about shortly, which is famous wizards, because that's when you start to hear like tales about people like Merlin in Arthurian legend. And Arthurian legend's difficult too, because there's a lot of truths at the time in there, and a lot of mythical ideas and wrapped up together. I've heard versions of Merlin being part of the Bretons that lived on the Isles at the time. They have the Roman Empire coming in and invading, and he's kind of one of these icons of these old wise men, with woad on his face and having the old ways, more of a druid, someone who's a wizard that is synced up with nature, rather than just bippity boppity boo, turn you into a frog deal. Kind of like, I am one with nature, and I represent the changing of the times. And as magic kept pushing forward, and Christianity kept pushing forward, and other societies and all kinds of modernism goes there, it keeps stuffing it down and down and down. And as we talked about in the podcast briefly, and as the future comes up, magic is all but set aside as an idea of paganism. It's bad, it's blasphemy, and it starts to be associated with actually not just anti-religion, but actually pro the devil and Satanism. And that's when you start to see things like the Salem witch trials come up. And it's not just the idea that you're practicing not the religion that we've set forth, is that you're actively trying to harm people, and you are accused of canoodling with the devil himself. So you're going to be put to death with that. I can't imagine how many thousands of people were put to the sword or lit on fire because either they were trying to practice magic or they were accused of doing it, and then lights out for that.
Yeah, and during that time, it was like, you hit on this. What you just said is that it was not quite, because I'm not talking about like the East, like Asia, but besides that, I'm talking about everything else. And it was
The Western world.
The Western world is almost binary. Is either you're a soldier for Christ or you're a pagan. Like paganism encompassed everything else. So if there was some, which is also a little unstructured compared to having texts that are thousands of years old. This is cave paintings basically, and word of mouth. So that's kind of what it was. So as people who were, there might have been a lot of lost information or borderline technology due to the fact that things were categorized as paganism. And then once you came to the Middle Ages and further past that, like you said, it became the devil and it was the enemy, and people died because of it. But that's kind of what our topic is today. I mean, this is what wizards are. They had things. they performed exorcisms because they were spiritual, and same thing. You mentioned the four elements. They use those to encompass energy and rid people of spirits and this stuff, and that's really the bread and butter of our conversation.
Yeah, the stuff they've been doing since ancient Sumeria.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because I feel like, Merlin is such a paradoxical figure. I mean, he was the son of a demon. I don't know if you guys knew this, but he was the son of a demon. But
Tell us more. I want to know more about him because I don't really know a whole
No,
lot.
let's talk about Merlin right now. Yeah.
yeah, no, nice. So yeah, he was the son of a incubus, which is the opposite of a succubus, which is like a demon that I guess, I don't know, tempts women, female.
Okay,
women,
yeah, because the succubus, it draws their power from
Yes.
seducing men and like taking
Yes.
their energy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so
the
he
incubus
had-
is the other version.
Yeah, so Merlin had powers from this incubus father, but he was portrayed as a servant of God, I guess, back in ancient scripture. The first time he
Interesting.
actually
that should be not able to survive.
I know,
together in the same
exactly.
thought, but there-
That's why he's so paradoxical, I think, and he's such an interesting character. I mean, he's considered as and you can tell me otherwise, but I think he's the first fictional wizard that it portrays in literature. Because he was, I have him written down here, it was written by Geoffrey of Monmouth. He actually wrote a book on the kings of England back in 1135, 36 or something like that. And he was credited as at first kind of just like this wise, kooky old man. But he was considered the first fictional character, I guess, that was written in England back at that time, which is kind of interesting. And then he evolved, obviously, most famous as we know him today in the Arthurian legends, which I think he's the most interesting in those stories for sure.
For sure. So even at the time in the 1100s, they were already writing about the idea of Merlin and things like that. And I think that I would have to agree with you. I don't know much about writings from that time, but when we picture a wizard, although you might be able to find Egyptian texts of high priests performing rituals to gods and they're using magic, I wouldn't consider that a wizard in the way that we're talking about today. I think that Merlin probably is as you said earlier, the gold standard, the
Yes.
cornerstone of what it means to be a wizard. Everyone else is just chasing that dragon. No pun intended, kind of.
I agree.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't really want to talk about the history anymore. That's the boring part. I think that Merlin is a great jump off right into famous wizards. I mean, do you want to talk any more about Merlin? Because most people would know him not from reading the books of what's his name, Geoffrey O'Houlihan.
I mean, right now I'm reading The Once and Future King by T.H. White. But the first contact I had with Merlin was from the old Disney movie.
That's what I was going to say. The Sword and the Stone is the
Yeah.
first time I ever heard of him. I think that's what most people would relate to as
yes.
first finding out what Merlin is. The classic big, tall, pointy hat. And
Yeah,
the
pointy
glasses.
hat. Yep, big beard. Yep. And
Magical, but I mean, obviously wise and knows a lot about sorcery, but it's not so like easy to get along with. Like part of the wizards too is that they're mysterious and they're not so socially. They're not that silver-tongued devil in the saloon who's like, hey, what are you gonna tell you? They're kind of a weirdo, but they know more than you think they know, kind of deal. And Merlin always seemed like that to me. Is that kind of what you think about Merlin?
No, exactly. And what I love about the book that I'm reading now is he comes in and Arthur is obviously he has a foster father. He doesn't know who his real father is because he was adopted. And Merlin comes in. And,
what if his real father was an incubus too?
No, his real father was.
No, your dad was demon too, dude. Sick.
I love that Merlin has a I don't know, I guess just like a hand in Arthur's life, his whole story. I mean, he came in as his tutor and he was able, what I love about this book that I'm reading is he turns him into all these different animals because he knows that Arthur is obviously going to be king someday because he kind of orchestrates that with the sword and the stone and teaching him his ways.
Yeah.
But he wants him to understand just certain things about different beasts, I guess, that he didn't understand at the time. And I thought it was really cool. Like he turns him into an ant, so he learns the hardworking, day of an ant, and he turns him into a falcon, and how they have like a super cool society, and I think it was really cool that he was able to show him different perspective of things that not any normal human would, be able to understand. And I think that's what makes Arthur a great king.
Yeah, being able to learn through abilities that you wouldn't normally have. It's almost like you could take it the two ways of this mythical character who is literally the son of an incubus and could change Arthur literally into an ant or a falcon or whatever.
Yes.
But on the other hand, to take it to like more grounded in, modern reality, it's almost like this man is teaching him the lessons he needs to learn by putting him in positions that he wouldn't normally be in, and that
Exactly.
would never be able to learn another way to make you a better king in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Great.
Little spoiler for things to come. I don't want to get here yet. I didn't have to do this, but it reminds me just a hair of a more modern day wizard named Rasputin. We'll get there.
Rasputin.
Rasputin. But
He's a wizard.
we're not going to get there yet, so don't get there. But I want to ask you guys, since we did talk about it a lot, you guys get down with the Merlin of Japan?
It's the first time hearing of it.
I know that there is considered a Merlin of Japan, but I don't know the full history of him.
Yeah, so he's similar to Merlin. He served in a royal court, and his name was Joe. You might need to help me out with this one because you're the Japanese guy here.
His name was Joe. What a weird name.
Yep, his name was Joe, aka
Just
Merlin
J.O.
of Japan. Joe Collins, famous Japanese guy. Abe no Saimei. Seimei. Did I say it right?
Every vowel it sounds the same every time, so it can't be Abe. It'd have to be Abe.
I didn't go to college, Joe. I'm not gonna remember that. Okay.
Neither did I. All right, we always bring this shit up.
So tell me how to say it.
I'm not blaming you, bro. I'm just saying if you ask for my help, I'm gonna try to give you a little help. Jeez, great.
I know. So it's ABENOSEIMEI. Abe no Saimei. How do you say it?
That sounds. Yeah, I think you just.
That sounds right to me.
Yeah.
Abe no
Abe no
Saimei?
Samey sounds right.
Yeah.
Or Samey?
No, you said it. Samey.
Samey. All right. So Abe no Saimei.
I think if there's no I in Japanese, I don't know if Matt can help me out because he listens to a lot of Japanese shit too. I would have to be AI. There's no like I sound in Japanese. It'd be like I.
Yeah,
I in Japanese.
Yeah.
They don't have just the
Asahi is
letter
a
I.
famous
It sounds
beer.
like I. What's that?
Asahi is a famous Japanese beer.
I'm not saying they don't have the letter I. I'm saying they don't have. If you write the letter I, it doesn't sound like I ever in Japanese. It always sounds like E. So if you want to make it sound,
it's like an E sound. Yeah.
Pie. I want to eat a pizza pie. You can't say it.
Yeah.
All right. So
Now that we've gotten that out of the way,
Amy?
tell us about the Japanese Merlin, please. I'm just going to call him Abe.
Yeah.
all right, I'm calling him Abe because I got.
Okay, yeah, that is funny.
I already
Yeah.
got confused about how to say his last name. Whatever. So the Merlin of Japan, aka Abe, 10th and 11th centuries AD. So we're talking, what's that? The year.
That's around the time they were writing about Merlin, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So he was.
Exactly.
He was a practitioner of Onmyodo, which is a mixture of natural science and occultism. So he was the guy they all went to for exorcisms, warding off evil spirits, and prophesizing the future. And then after his death, he just became larger than life and say that he was half human. His mother was a fox. Additionally, he commanded a Japanese ogre even as a child. I don't know what that means, but I know what that is, but overall,
That sounds sick.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, he sounds super magical, much like Merlin
Yeah.
having the mysterious origins. His mother was a fox. He's one with the woods. And he knows
Yeah,
about
exactly.
the true spirits and all that kind of stuff. Spirit in the forest.
Yeah, exactly. But he was real. He did exorcisms, and then he died. And they said this is the guy that could have solved all our problems. And he's dead now, and no one knows where he got his skills from. But
Did they say how he died?
I'm sure you could do some research on him, but he looked like me, except just with more Japanese attire on, obviously. And he was he died.
He wasn't a naked old man in the woods. I could see a magical man in Japan.
What do you
being
mean?
naked.
He had clothes.
He's like, my mom's a fox. What do I care? She never put any clothes on.
Yeah, well, but he looked, just picture Mulan, and that's sorry, wrong era. Sorry, Jesus, I know, that's China. So, he, yes, old Japanese guy when he died, so he probably died of, whatever.
I was wondering if there was a story about how he died and his robes fell to the floor, and then one single white dove flew to the sky, and that was like how he parted the story. I don't know if there's any weird legend or anything like that. Is there any tale of how Merlin died, Matt? Is there anything like that? Not to end him so quickly,
I mean, it's a sad tale. I mean, so
how's it go?
We're ready.
He had an apprentice that he trained.
The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and it was Mickey Mouse. I don't mean to get ahead.
No, it wasn't Mickey Mouse. So he originally vowed that he would not teach anybody his magical arts, but of course, he fell in love with this girl.
Tale as old as time.
Exactly. He ended up teaching her his ways, and one day he ended up being put to sleep by her for all of eternity, and that's how he heals up.
Wow.
I mean,
you don't mean euthanized. You mean actually
there's
put under
varying,
a sleeping spell.
Endings of how he died, but that's the most common one, that his apprentice, who was the Lady of the Lake, ended up, turning him.
The Lady of the Lake was his apprentice. She's the one who talked to Arthur and told him he was going to be the king, right?
Yeah, no, the Lady of the Lake was the lady that ended up giving Arthur Excalibur after
okay.
the stone broke. Yep.
In Tales, Secrets from History, never, ever, ever trust a lady from the lake. In every horror movie,
dry women only. That's the
lady
rule
of the lake.
No, that's a good tip. Exactly.
All she does is pull you in the lake and kill you.
Or sirens, or having you crash your ship upon the rocks and dragging it.
Women in water, don't trust them.
No, exactly.
In history, I'm not saying nowadays. If there's a girl on jet ski that wants to take you out, go for it.
Even then, actually, especially then, double so.
Like the jet ski?
Yeah. If some chick drives by on the dock on a jet ski, why don't you hop on? That's more of a trap than a siren. You be careful of that shit.
But have you ever been on a jet ski? Anyone?
Nope.
Yes.
Yeah. What'd you think?
Great time.
Yeah, it's the most fun.
But here's the thing. I wasn't disagreeing with it. That would be awesome. I'm saying it would be equally as ruinous. You think those sirens aren't beautiful and have great voices? There's a reason why you get drawn in. It's just that the aftermath is the death of you.
Yeah, but all the guys who got drawn in by the sirens at least went out in like enjoyment. And same thing. There are 3 of the most fun things on Earth. 1 is a jet ski. Number 2 is a motorcycle. Both kill you. Okay.
And 3 is getting laid in the water. I'm missing that part.
What?
Is 3 getting laid in the body of water? Because that fits all the descriptions so far.
I don't know where that fits into this. But
what are we talking about here? We're just talking about jet skis. We're talking about women in the water. I think you lost me at some point
or on the water. That sounds great. But number one most fun you can have ever is definitely a jet ski. It's a fact.
Okay, so to recap, we got jet ski, motorcycle, and jet ski.
No, I said number 1 is jet ski. Number 2 is motorcycle. Number 3 is getting laid on the ocean or something.
Oh, yeah, well, that's pretty good. That's not a bad example. Like I said, if you want to go out one way, I'd rather go out on a jet ski than having my own apprentice put me to sleep like a Sith Lord who forgot to set his alarm.
Yeah, I agree
exactly.
with that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely agree with that. So
I never knew that about Merlin though. So shame the devil that he's all dead by now. But I think that's a great way to get into our famous wizard segment here. We started off with Merlin. I'm glad we did. Mm-hmm. You got to do it. And we're going to go into the famous wizards in whatever media, fiction, whatever you want to think about. And please stay away from the KKK because those wizards aren't famous and they shouldn't be. Grand or not.
Anti-KKK podcast. And I actually don't know any famous KKK members. Besides John.
But they took the word wizard and they dressed up all in the pointy hats. They stole the whole thing.
I know one.
I can name 5 of them. Number 1.
Number 1 is John Goodman, aka Fred Flintstone, aka the guy in
Oh Brother Where Art Thou?
In Oh Brother Where Fucking Art Thou? Yes.
That's
KKK member that I can name by heart.
He's a Cyclops too, to pull in another myth in that one.
And he's a psychopath.
And there's sirens in that movie too. In the water, they sing into the water.
Yep.
And draw them in.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and he's a legit, genuinely the scariest psycho in Cloverfield 2.
Oh yeah, 10 Cloverfield
Yes,
Lane.
sorry, forgot 10 Cloverfield Lane. Cloverfield 2.
Yeah.
So, all right, so we're going for.
I'm surprised you watched the second one. I only got to the first one.
Yeah, I never saw it either.
I
it
saw
was
it
on
in
Netflix though, right,
theaters,
Dylan?
actually, believe it or
Oh, you
not.
saw it in theaters? Oh, I thought it was a
Wow.
Netflix. No, that was the third one. That was a Netflix original.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's like having a really bad day as a movie.
Oh,
Not that Cloverfield 1 is, at least Cloverfield 1 has some sort of like mystery. This is you're locked in a basement with Fred Flintstone who's trying to rape you. It's terrible. I mean, it's
for
not,
some people that sounds like
no,
a
like
great time.
All right, my worst.
Hey,
fears-
Bonnie, I'm gonna make you
Yeah, that's-
bedrock unless you do
That's
what
a
I
fun
say.
time.
my worst fears in life are structure mixed with like him. So like
So
you're in his like this is a prepper who has every day planned out ration wise, and you have to listen to what he says, and he gives you a certain amount of things that you, and if you don't do it, he flips out, and he also wants to have sex with you. It's a fucking bad deal. But he's like, well, I keep you alive, so you know if you go out there, the monsters leave, and they're like, oh, you'll go out there, and then all of a sudden the monsters fucking out there. So it's like really bad. Like you go out there, you get eaten by the Cloverfield thing. You go inside, you're stuck with John Goodman and his rules. It's so bad. I'd rather just get eaten.
I mean, it's awful.
Yeah, I was
but how
gonna say
many
I'd
days
risk
before
the
those
outside
monsters-
world for sure.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, so those monsters start looking pretty nice.
Yeah.
At least they finish you off pretty fast. This guy's, slowly pumping away on you, and you're starving to death. Like, oh,
Exactly.
another day of rice and beans. Fuck this.
He's
Can't
getting
be worse than
mad
this.
at you. Like he's just getting angry at you because it's just so bad. It's like
Slapping you with those big fat paws he has, those big fat dude hands, and
yeah,
like the
he's got them.
fucking catcher's
Yep.
mitt, just wah, I never seen it again, but I imagine he had some slappings involved.
Well, if you guys are like feeling really down, and sometimes when you're down, you want just like something depressing to watch, that's what you need to watch.
That's not usually what I want to watch when I'm down.
Well, no,
I get
sometimes
it,
you're
though.
like, I just want to like feel it more.
Yeah, it's cathartic. You have to like break through the other
Like
side.
I want to watch
kind
something
of
fucked up. That's what you should watch.
thing. I hear that. Yeah.
It sucks.
I don't know. I haven't seen the first one since it was in theaters either, so I might have to check that one out. That sounds like a great time.
Yeah,
Next time
Cloverfield 1
something
is
awful
great.
happens to me,
You're in
I'll put on-
Manhattan. You're like having a party. bunch of people there.
Having a party.
And then there's basically Godzilla shows up and
Yeah.
and
TJ
you're
Miller's
scared.
talking shit. They're running
And you
around the
run
camera.
away.
Yeah, no, TJ Miller, yeah, he talks some major shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cloverfield. We brought it up in 2 podcasts. Do we only have a certain number of things we're allowed to talk about, Dylan? We just don't know it. It's like a list of things in our brain, and I always have to come up.
I think that we're just not exposed to wider, more culture.
We're bringing the culture, baby.
We're just sheltered. We don't know anything.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm
I
gonna
was
reference,
homeschooled, so
horror
you
movies
can't beat
and
that.
and
Oh,
Cloverfield.
yeah. Well, Matt was homeschooled, so even though he was allowed to leave, there was no Cloverfield monsters outside. That's shelter.
Yeah, none whatsoever.
Well, you can go inside to get outside, which is what homeschool people do. Like in their mind, they're
Do you go to your mind palace, Matt, when you got bored as shit when your mom was teaching you the phonograms or whatever?
Yes, no, I mean, well, what was awesome was, I was homeschooled in Florida, so we had a bunch of, we had like 10 acres of land, which was awesome. So I was able to just
Nice.
kind of go out and explore and do my own thing. And yeah, it was a good time. Honestly, no structure whatsoever.
Here's to your parents, though. I mean, homeschooling has got to be really hard. I mean,
Yes.
like, to do it as like a caregiver, that's like a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, no, my mom was awesome. She was so diligent because it was my older sister and then my younger brother. So she had a lot to teach us, and she was so good about bringing us on field trips, which I thought was really awesome.
Oh,
To
yeah.
different places. We always were, traveling, which was awesome. And I
Yeah.
think that was what was cool about the homeschooling experience.
Yeah, and it probably, I mean, I would imagine it just like carries over into your adult life. Like every experience you have is something to learn from. And I
Oh,
think
for
that's
sure.
Really, really, really important in adult life. And if you don't view things that way, it can get difficult.
Yeah,
Yes.
agreed.
So that's awesome. So are you from Florida? Because
He's from
no, so
Parts
actually-
Unknown. He didn't talk about his dad yet, who was an incubus.
Yeah, my dad was a demon.
Wasn't around much. His dad's actually a really sweet guy.
Yeah, no, he's awesome. No, we actually, I grew up in Franklin, Bellingham area of Massachusetts. And then my grandparents actually moved down to Florida. And my family, well, my mom and dad, and then we ended up going down and they gave us 10 acres of land to build a house on. And
And a mule. Don't forget
yeah,
that.
exactly. And we were in the boondocks for sure. Like we were like kind of north. We were North Florida, you know, so it was like close to Georgia. So it was
The
lots of
fun part.
farmland. Yes, exactly. Lots. So we were involved with like 4-H, and yeah, my mom did a good job of homeschooling us, and yeah, my dad was a business owner, and he did concrete work, and my sister, actually, how we ended up back here was my sister wanted to go to college up here, and I knew I wanted to come back here too, because I just love the culture up here. I love Boston. I love the art scene up here. So once my parents knew that my sister and me were going to go to college up here, they were like, well, we don't want to not see you guys, so we're going to buy a house up here. So that's when they ended up moving, and yeah, we lived in Florida for about 6 years, and it was an interesting experience. I wouldn't live down there permanently. Just that's my preference. But
yeah, it's a good place to go visit. Only psychos live down there permanently.
Exactly.
Looking at you,
Yeah.
Maggie F.
Yeah, shout out to Maggie F and Doug F.
Cat F.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that, Matt.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
I've been having problems with the lights in the house. I think it's the fuse box. You know, the lights have been going on and off. I don't really know what's going on there.
So take a look at it.
Yeah, it's right on the corner here. I mean, my wife's been cooking dinner and the lights are going off halfway through. It's a whole mess.
Box right here.
Yeah, it's a fuse box here. Yeah.
Oh, well, there's your problem. We're all set.
So yeah, I thought we'd get back to the famous wizards and talk about more fun shit. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't tap on the other wizard that we tapping. I'm talking about Magic the Gathering. Matt, of course, is what I'm talking about. Is Gandalf the Grey? I mean, how can we not mention him after Merlin? I don't want to put off anyone's.
Of course.
What do we think about Gandalf? I mean, for me, he probably is my favorite wizard for just like how like grandiose and cool and all this shit he can do. Dylan, have you ever even seen Lord of the Rings? I know you hate magic, and then you're a goddamn magic hater. So, did you ever see it?
Fuck kind of question is that?
I mean, you know who he is.
Dude, I tell you two times I've laughed the hardest in my whole entire life.
Please.
One is every
Please.
time I'm in church and someone farts. Second is
Oh, that's number one with a bullet. That's actually me too. And
I mean,
that's
that's always funny. That's always funny.
Or you had a funeral and
Dude,
someone
real quick,
funeral.
we'll tell a story about Pat Barry farting in church. It was the hardest maybe I've laughed in my whole life ever. Because then you have to, not only is it funny because of the situation, it's funnier double because you have to not laugh, which makes it twice as funny.
You can't recognize.
So we were
it.
at
You
church.
can't recognize it.
Nope.
Yeah, so me and Dylan were in the same row at church. A lot of times you go to church at school where you're like, it's like a Tuesday or whatever, and you like go to church. And in front of us is the funniest person probably I've ever met in my life. Maybe. Every time I see it, I mean, I don't care how funny I think I am or Dylan is.
Yeah.
He's just so much funnier than
He's
us.
the funniest person I've ever met in my life.
Wow.
And this is an example of why. So we go, when we take the communion from the priest, you go back and then you do the thing, you kneel, and then you think about all the reasons you don't deserve to take Jesus into your heart and soul. You forgive yourself, the whole thing. So we're doing the kneeling thing where they're just playing the music quietly, and he's in the row in front of us, and he's kneeling down. And as soon as he goes to kneel down, we're like kneel right behind him, and he just rips one super loud to the point where it wasn't like a squeak, it was like a roar. And we know it's him. And not only are we now losing our shit, trying not to laugh, he turns around and looks at us. He turned and looked.
He's able to not laugh and just stare at us.
He's scolding you guys.
We fucking lost it, man.
Well, and the thing is, like,
Oh,
that's
it
an
was chuckling,
extreme
but me and Dylan
example of,
fucking-
like just getting the wrong person at the wrong time to fart, and then because
Oh.
he knows he did it, and then he was able. He had the strength to turn
The strength of will.
The
and not even
strength of will.
smile, not even smile, and
And
look
no,
at
no
us.
smile. And also, he's in high
Nothing.
school. He's okay with ripping ass in front of the entire church for a laugh. I respect the hell out of him to this day for that.
Respect.
I would
that
have been
so
such a.
much.
I'd be hiding farts all day in high school. I was so embarrassed about anything, you know. And he'd strip one of them, and the church is dead quiet. He just turns around like he's fucking The Exorcist. Looks right at us. Lost it. It was grand.
I mean, you
I
can't
can't.
control bodily fluid. I mean, come on.
It's all
Yeah.
natural, baby.
If someone,
Well, you know, you're in
Exactly.
high school. You're ashamed of everything.
if someone held a gun to my head in that moment and said, "You can't laugh at something that's gonna happen today," and I would have my brains on the back of the fucking
I'd be dead as well. Yeah, no chance.
pillars in the
There's
church.
no
It'd be
avenue.
fucking so. I couldn't do it. It's so funny. It's the funniest thing ever. And then, so here's the thing: is so that's the most extreme example of absolutely not being able to handle it. I mean, there's no. We're set up for failure by Pat Barry.
Yeah.
We can't.
Not fair. You know what he was doing.
Yeah, he knew exactly what he was doing. That's how funny he is. Because he doesn't care. Like, oh, someone's gonna make fun of me for farting. It's like, no. He's like, this is real. So funny. But like, it doesn't always work out like that in church. Sometimes somebody
Not
is-
always. That's very
fine.
true. It's the exception that proves the rule. Yeah.
Somebody sometimes is trying to hide it, and they just get a little like, and then me and Joe would be sitting at each other, and I know you would hear it, and you know that I'd hear it, and you just go.
Everyone knows.
You would just sit there and go, dude, just think of the worst thing. In my head, I'd be like, think of the absolute most fucked up thing you can possibly think of to depress yourself,
ignore it.
and think of the just so you don't laugh, and then you start shaking like uncontrollably, like shaking, and then you can't breathe, so then you go like that, and then you would hear me try to not breathe, and you would not breathe, and then we'd both crack, and the whole line of boys in the pew would just start laughing. We all kicked out.
And everyone's in trouble now.
Yeah, we're all in trouble
Yeah, it's
because
all our fault.
someone's laughing because something's happening.
We're not laughing at Jesus. We're laughing at someone ripped it and they tried to hide it on the pew.
So funny. It's the funniest thing
I hear
ever.
that
So
shit.
that's number one.
Those
And
pews do
number-
not hide fart sounds whatsoever.
No, they amplify it for sure.
Yeah, it's not good. Not good.
Well, where are we going with that? I'm so glad you brought it.
Oh, because I said that's
So,
number
what was the other
one.
thing?
Number two moment that I laughed so hard.
Number two,
was-
jet skis.
No, it's not laughing.
Oh,
It's
okay,
fun.
sorry. That was I shouldn't have guessed.
That's just smiling. It's different. Number two is at the Twin Towers. The Lord of the Rings.
The two
Twin-
towers.
Oh, Lord of the Rings, the two
The second
towers.
funniest thing in my life, 9/11. Holy
Oh,
shit,
close.
was that funny?
I
The
saved
one
it.
plane I thought
saved-
was good. When the second plane hit, I lost.
Yeah, I came real close to going there, and you just did. So no one's laughing.
I'll take the fucking bullet
Yeah,
for you
you
there.
take the
Yeah,
punch.
way to
Lord
go,
of the
Joe.
Rings, the two towers. The two
Lord of
towers
the
is
Rings,
the
the
name.
two towers.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Frodo gets bit by a spider, and
Hey, that's a third one, I think.
you sure about that? Because the two towers was the best one.
Shelob, isn't that the third
Yeah,
one?
no,
Maybe I'm wrong.
Shelob is in the third one, which he.
It.
Yeah,
All right. Sorry,
she-
I'm getting.
he gets
But it's
stung
all one
last
story,
year.
though. It's all. I mean, the book is like way longer than the movie, but it's all one story. I think that counts as in.
Yeah.
I thought. All right. I thought.
And I'm glad you didn't get it right because it wouldn't have had to do that great 9/11 joke we're so famous for on this podcast.
I know. It was yeah, right. So I was with Harry, and we were with his dad, and he brought us to see the third one, and apparently, which I think you guys are lying, but it's fine. But we
Maybe you
Matt does
thought
not think I'm
afterwards.
lying.
I don't
Matt
know.
does not think he's lying. Neither do you. So anyways, I'm just
Well,
proving.
who do you
guys
think is
that-
right? The two people who know it, or the guy who called it the Twin Towers? I don't know. Go to the phone lines.
Me. Go to the phone. Yeah. Can you get a caller on this one? I need a third person to
Phone a
prove me I'm wrong.
friend.
So
Sorry, go ahead, Dylan.
So I'm just proving you guys that I've fucking seen them and I like them. So I like them.
Oh,
more-
that's what we're doing. I forgot what the premise of what we were talking
Yes.
about. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
So I we were there watching it, and Frodo gets bit by the spider, and he just goes.
And he starts foaming at the mouth. Yeah.
Forever, for literally ever. It's and then it just, at first you go, oh shit, he got bit by a spider. I hope he's gonna be all right. Then it doesn't stop. It's at least a minute, right? Where he looks like
They
he's
really go into it
constipated
for a
and
while.
shitting. He looks like he's shitting for a minute.
Those baby blue eyes.
Yes, and he's
sensing
just
the
like he's constipated forever, and then I've lost it. So that was like the second funniest moment of my life watching something besides church was Frodo getting bit by a spider. It's not supposed to be funny, which is why it's funny.
That's why it's funny. Just like the church thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's not
man,
supposed to
I'm
be
so
funny.
glad I
I'm the only
accused
person in
you
the
of
movie
not
theater who's
watching
just
Lord of the Rings.
giggling. Not giggling. I'm aggressively shaking
Yeah.
and trying not to laugh, which is
You're like bursting a blood
ultimate-
vessel in your eye because you're trying to
Yes.
hold it
Oh,
back.
yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
trying to hold back a sneeze. You're like, you can't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah,
It has to
exactly.
get out.
Like I said,
Wow, that's
anytime someone
intense.
falls at a funeral, it's just as funny. So just saying.
Oh my god. So you're a huge Lord of the Rings guy.
No, I
think you
like
proved
Lord of the
it
Rings.
before,
I
but-
genuinely like Lord of the Rings. My wallpaper almost was Lord of the Rings. It was this close, trust me. It was actually
Mhm.
this close to being Lord of the Rings wallpaper. And no, I like Lord of the Rings. And dude, who said Gandalf first in this fucking podcast? Who?
I mean, you
Easy
did.
now.
But
I'm not-
for me,
Yeah.
I'm not
honestly-
saying that. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that you're
No,
doing it. I'm just
honestly-
saying,
So
Go
for
ahead,
me, Gandalf it was very close, I think. I think I chose Merlin just because I've read so many things about him. I've watched so many things about him. I like him as a whole, but I love that Gandalf is just he's got a sword. He's very he can fight, which is awesome.
Mhm.
And I love that specifically in the third one, how he starts out as a kind of wandering wizard. He's very mysterious, but I think what's interesting about Tolkien, how he wrote him, is he wasn't this wizard that was very like flashy, you know what I'm saying, that was very like, big spells, big blasting spells. He was kind of like, what is
And
he
he
gonna
didn't
do
demand
next?
the respect and worship of people around him, like people like
Yeah.
Saruman, another wizard in the same
Yes.
world, was more like, I'm going to use my powers to my advantage to become basically a ruler. And Gandalf really wasn't that kind of character, even though he was almost as strong as him. He decided to be kind of a lone wolf kind of deal.
No, exactly. And I think what was tough for Saruman specifically was he got super corrupted by the Seeing Stone, which there was like 4 of these Seeing
Palantir.
Stones. Yes, exactly. And he saw so much of just Sauron just conquering Middle Earth and just reigning that he gave into it. And he's like, okay, well, if I don't go this path, I'm going to be destroyed. But I love about Gandalf was that he didn't care about that bullshit. He kept on fighting on. I love that he was the only wizard that was able to, Astari as they're called, was able to recognize the goodness of hobbits. There was
Incorruptible.
Yeah, exactly. There was all these powerful characters in Middle Earth, and the hobbits are kind of these creatures behind the scene that no one really recognized, and Gandalf was able to tap into their just kindness and their just just real ability, if that's a word. Is that a word? Real ability?
Relatability?
Yeah,
Okay,
relatability. Sure.
gotcha, yeah.
Okay.
They're real. And
Oh,
they're uncorruptible, as you said. And I
Yeah,
think
and
that
also
was-
it's like they're the idea they're the weakest among all the different races of people, but
That's
you
a
think
good
that like
point.
they're like they can't do shit. They're just out, eating potatoes and smoking whatever it's called.
Smoking the halfling weed. That's literally
yeah,
what it's
yeah,
called.
whatever that- yeah, and then
The
you think they can't
essence
do
to
anything, but
success
actually,
in the society, and I believe that firmly. And I think,
yeah. But their real strength isn't how much they can wield the sword or how much power they have. It's the fact that they can't be corrupted by evil, which
Yes.
almost every other person in the world can. So when the bad
Yep.
guys come around and they start turning everybody, they're the ones that, because they don't give a fuck and they're just chilling out, they're not susceptible to greed and all those other
Yep.
my
things
my
that-
2 things to add to that, Joe, is that I think the word we're looking for is humility.
Mm.
And that's
Sure, yeah, they don't
that's
have a
the
whole
type
lot
of
of
person
pride.
you want to work with. You work
Mhm.
with them. They don't, like kind of like we're all doing right now. We're all complimentary of each other. We're not like no one's like being a dick.
Sort of a
And-
fellowship, if you would.
The Fellowship. Yeah, I like that.
Yes. And Gandalf, his role in this is that he knows he has great power, and he knows that it's how he has the humbleness to exist in the world is because he knows he can end all
Or
sorts of
humility,
people's-
as you said already.
yeah,
Great word
humility.
for
That's
it.
the word.
Humility
Or humbleness. You already said it.
Well,
Great.
he knows
Great
he
point.
knows he knows that he has the most power out of anybody he ever meets, but he doesn't flaunt it and he doesn't use it unless necessary. And then he finds
Right.
out because of the ring that he just wanted to go live his life and shoot
Yeah.
fireworks out of his little wagon and all good.
It's a great time. It's a
And
great time.
he
Yeah,
decides
exactly.
that it's now time that he has to fucking turn online and save the planet.
Yeah. And he's just as corruptible as anyone else. That's why he uses the hobbits, because everyone always thinks I never read the book, but watching the movies, you're like, why doesn't Gandalf just do it all himself? He's super powerful. He's an Astari, which is basically, in that universe, a demigod. In that universe, you can't become a wizard by learning spells and reading and doing all this stuff. You have to be inherently that being there. He's a step in between mortals and a god, which makes him a wizard in that universe. But even he knows that he can still be corrupted like anyone else, and the only ones who can't are these simple folks who live in the Shire. So he is able to team up with them, and even though he's one of the most powerful people in the world and they're one of the weakest, they actually end up helping him more than he helps them in that case. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, exactly. I agree.
Yeah, and just like any good man in today's day and back then too, they are able to expose their vulnerability, vulnerability, which is a strength. Expose that,
Absolutely.
put it out there, let people know you're human, so to speak, and be strong.
And I think what was cool about Gandalf too is he went through a I don't know what the word would be. I guess
Transfiguration.
reckoning. Yeah, exactly. And he was able to defeat the Balrog, obviously, and attain what Saruman the White should have been. Which I find very interesting about Gandalf. How he's able to come back as a more prominent, powerful figure in the story.
Yeah, that's another trope in a lot of myths, right? Is that you have to, even if you are the hero, you have to die and come back, whether that's a real physical death or if it's more of an ego death where you have to kill off your old self and become a new person. He's a good example of that in that story, where he's already the super powerful wizard. He's fighting the equivalent of a giant demon in the movie. It's a giant fire-breathing monster with a whip and a sword. You're like, oh, there's no fucking chance he can beat this thing. It's like he's fighting Godzilla. There's no way. And then essentially he dies and comes back to life, and not only as more strong, but more like a wizard. He comes back wiser and has a better idea on what to do in the world, and he's more at peace with himself, which I think is a very wizardy thing to do.
You shall not pass!
And I think ego death is one of the most key factors of that you mentioned. And so who's the guy in white again? What's his name?
Saruman.
Not to be confused with Sauron, which is almost the exact same fucking. When I was a kid, I was like, this is impossible.
It's very close. Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, Count Dooku.
So yeah, Saruman, for example, like you said, the only way to defeat someone like that is you can relate it to New Yorkers wearing black, in my mind. They wear black because they want to they don't want to seem, they want to just fit into the crowd so no one notices them, so they can live their lives, and they have their own superpowers, each of them. And Gandalf, compared to Saruman, wears gray. He's a gray. He doesn't look anything crazy. He just looks like, he's one of them. But Saruman wears all white, has white hair, has this crazy thing. You see his superpower, but that's
he has to wake up every day and straighten his hair out, make it all silky and straight. And
it's so silky.
He puts a lot of effort into his appearance. You got to admit. And Gandalf doesn't really care about that.
There's a weakness in the You realize this guy spends a majority of his time trying to hold this persona that might not hold up when exposed and when challenged. So whereas Gandalf doesn't. He's gray and a guy's guy and likes everybody, and it's all good.
I
It's a
think
good
you just nailed it there, Dylan.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely,
that's a good
because
point.
those are the two character traits that separate them. Is that Saruman doesn't just join him because he thinks that he's going to win inevitably. He wants to do it because he wants to keep living on. If I go against him, I might die and cease to exist. But if I go along with the bad guys, I can keep being because I'm so important. I'm this big guy, the head of Isengard. I'm a big deal. And Gandalf, on the other hand, sacrifices himself to die in this deep, dark mine just to have another 10-minute head start on these other guys. I mean, they're the exact opposites in that sense. And I think that Dylan really nailed the point there, that one of them has that ego death and the other one just holds on to it, so tightly that it actually ends up being his demise, luckily for all of us, when the Ents come and they take back the forest, as it were.
I appreciate the credit, but you started that conversation, so I just have to add my 2
Well,
cents.
I think that you put the bullseye on it. I just set up the dartboard.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think what I love about Gandalf personally is that, Saruman, he saw the future in this, the Lost Seeing Stone, and he gave in to despair. Gandalf didn't give in to that, and I really, really like that about Gandalf. He saw what the capabilities of hobbits and humans, and he was able.
He didn't give up hope just because it looked so terrible.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you saw, in the movies, you saw what happened to Saruman, but in the books, it's funny. He actually, have either of you read the books?
Nope.
So in the movies, I don't know if you've seen the movies, but in the extended edition, he kind of dies. He ends up like falling down out of his tower.
Yeah. It's like the emperor.
Yeah. So in the books, though, he ends up going back with Wormtongue and convincing the hobbits that he's some kind of like person that they should listen to, right?
Oh, this is this whole goblin
yes.
deal.
Yeah. So he ends up
I'm glad I took it out of the movies, but that's so weird that they have.
And it's interesting. And then obviously when Frodo goes to the Undying Lands, when Sam and Pippin and Merry come back, they actually have to fight Saruman and convince the hobbits that don't listen to his ways, like he's not who he says he is, and you know what, he is this loser, that you shouldn't listen to. So if that's the right word, loser, I don't know.
It is, yeah. He's fucking lame-o wizard.
Yeah, he is. He's so lame, and then he ends up getting stabbed by Wormtongue right at the end. So
yeah, that's Gandalf. I think he's a great example of wizards as we go through the rest of our list here. That I don't want to be naming them all off in a row, just my list. Do you guys want to go one at a time and pop out a couple of ideas you might have on wizards, and we can keep rolling?
This is my question. For you guys, if you were a wizard per se, what would be your one power that you would love to have?
Ah, that's great. I had this on my list too. I wanted to ask you guys what you would want to be. What kind of wizard would you be? So, to be fair, don't wish for 1,000 wishes kind of deal. Like, pick a lane. You know what I mean? You want to be a pyromancer and have the ability to fire? Do you want to work with the earth? What kind of wizardry do you think you guys would want to have? I already have my answer. But I
have mine too. So Dylan can go first.
Talk mine out.
All right, yeah, let's talk it out.
Yeah.
So when it comes to Lord of the Rings, I always imagine myself as
let's take it outside Lord of the Rings though. Just any kind of wizard.
I know, but like as a person, I'm very tangible. Like I said, Legolas, arrows. That's me.
Sure.
It's not me, but I'm not.
Cutie pie. Like, old.
Like when I was a kid, I was like, I'd be that.
Baby blue eyes, like Frodo. Hit by a spider.
Yep. Exactly.
It's a lot to like.
Yep. Pirates of the Caribbean. So
Will Turner.
Yeah, Will Turner.
So as a wizard, and I was in. So powers that wizards have, and I guess this is a good conversation to have, is that what
I think so.
Do you guys? What do their powers do? I know for the most part based off of video games.
Picture it based off of that. I mean, as much as I've seen,
they're
TV
aggressive
shows,
or defensive powers, and that's in a combination of two.
Mm-hmm.
They're not.
Yeah, most of what I know about magic is coming from video games. I've watched, TV shows, movies, stuff like that. I've read barely any fantasy books, but most of the magic knowledge I have comes from video games and how you can use different powers in order to accomplish your goal. For example, we might forget about the idea of necromancy or bringing the dead back to life and playing with things like that. You bring up the ideas of, power of ice, cold. It's not one of the elements, but like frost magic or blood magic, which is using your own body and sacrifice to other people to accomplish things that wouldn't be possible, like sacrificing for almost the intention and the amount of value something has. If you take that away, you can get something away from it, things like that.
Yeah, so no, I hear you on that. So for me, given the fact, so say I have to, I gotta, there's an objective, I gotta win or whatever it is. I'm incredibly patient.
You mean, yeah.
No, I'm really,
Patient.
I'm really, really patient. I have that going for me, which is why being
That's a good trait.
Thanks. Yeah, it is a good trait.
I hear it's a virtue that few possess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, patience
So-
is a virtue.
It definitely is. So I appreciate that, guys. So like that's why the Legolas thing kind of this will come full circle. So it's good for me because kind of the sniper-esque type of thing. Like I'm really, really it's all
Graceful, beautiful young boy dancing
clearly,
around the woods.
yeah. So for me, this sounds crazy and it's not weird, but like if I had a goal to take, is I could enhance those other abilities that I have that add to my patience-ness if I had invisibility. Because
This
if I
interesting.
did have to do some
Illusion magic, I would consider that.
yeah, so
Yeah,
like if I
no,
had to
that'd
do
be
some sort of
illusionist.
recon or whatever it is, and I was in an aggressive role, it would benefit me the most to be invisible. Based off of the skills that I have naturally. If I were to add one, if I was in some sort of a, position where I need to complete a task.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
I
pretty
would
good,
love
'cause
to
on
have,
top of that,
like,
if you
some
pick-
sort of cool wizardry power where I can make people explode, or I can bring people back from the dead. But I'm logistically not talented enough.
Not gonna do that.
to manage an army of the dead. So I need.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot of effort. Yeah, it's a good.
It is.
point.
It's a
That's
lot.
a
It's a
lot of
lot of
work.
planning, and
It's a lot of
Logistics,
mental
like
work.
yeah, it is. It's a lot. Just like I said, just like if I am
Responsibility,
playing,
really.
if I am playing Skyrim and I decide I want to be have more magic ability than not, it's a lot for me to manage, and I'm not sure that I'm pretty good with one thing. So I would choose invisibility, which would add value to
Yeah,
doing what I
I
can
think
do.
you could put that on the umbrella of
Interesting.
illusionism too, where you could cloud
Yeah.
people's mind and play tricks on them and things like that. You don't have to
Yeah.
be invisible. I think that would
Yeah, I
fall
would
under that
definitely-
Yeah, I
category
would say for
yeah.
sure illusionists, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
illusionism.
Yeah. Yep. I agree
good
with that.
point.
So that's me.
Nice. Yeah, I would love the one of my favorite abilities in Baldur's Gate, as the game that I first played, was time control.
Oh, you son of a!
I think if you can control time, if
That's
you
my
said that
answer,
you-
man. I had the
Yeah,
same
exactly.
answer.
If you said that you
Chronomancy,
had
the ability to
infinite
manipulate
knowledge-
time.
Yeah, exactly. All you need is infinite time, So
It almost
I mean-
supersedes any other kind, because
Yes, I think for
if you
me,
control
I would-
time, you control all of existence, really.
Exactly. I think for me, I would be a wizard that would be able to control time, and I would just be able to accomplish pretty much anything and everything. That's
I'm
my
sorry,
opinion.
mine's so boring. I agree with you 100%. That's why I'm a chronomancer, someone who can control
But-
time.
Oh yeah,
That's
that's a technical term, chronomancy. Yeah.
Aren't you scared about that though? So are we talking time travel, or are we talking
I'm
slowing down
terrified.
and speeding up?
all of it. You can control and manipulate time.
Yeah, I can't handle that responsibility.
It's a lot.
Well,
It
you
is.
can
It is
just
a lot.
Go back in the past and relive moments, change things, do whatever it is. It's a big responsibility to hold over your shoulders.
Yeah.
Whereas invisibility,
I think ultimately it would be a super lonely existence, and it would actually be
Yes,
like a monkey's paw. Where
lonely.
it'd be
Yep.
terrible to be able to control time. But as a guy who has no control over time at all, I would like to give it a shot and see if I don't like it.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I think it would to be terrible though. It'd be more of a curse than a gift when you have it. For
Yes.
sure.
Yeah. No, one of the abilities, like I said, that I love in this game is literally you can do this ability called time stop. And so when this battle is going on the screen, you can cast a spell, and when you stop time, everything
Wow.
stops, right? So during that time of 30 seconds or whatever you want it to be, you can cast spells, you can move around, you can go different places, you can it's just, I don't know. If you can have the ability of time, I mean, the possibilities are endless, I think, in my opinion. So
Agreed.
I would definitely like to
Yeah.
attend.
Yeah, I mean, no, I agree with you on that.
I thought I was being all clever thinking of that question and the answer. You beat me to both. I got to give it to you, man. Well done.
Endless possibilities.
Question.
Your guarantee of success is 100%.
Yes. Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. No question.
And I'm sorry that I stole your ability, Joe, but you have to come.
No, don't be sorry. Yeah, that's great. That's fucking genius. But yeah, again, though, I mean, it's like you said, the possibilities are endless, which means your success rate is going to be 100%. But what does that do to you over the course of your life? Whatever your life means, if you can control time, I think ultimately it would be like being like some sort of, whether you're like Gandalf, you're some sort of half god being. And I think that'd be a really lonely and fucked up existence if you don't.
Well, and adversity is what makes us human, and all you're doing is avoiding it. So
yeah, you'd be
not
always
avoiding
avoiding
it. You go, I fucked up. Holy shit. Let me go. me hold Y on the Xbox controller and go back for a while.
Yeah, even in minor inconvenience, you would be so tempted just to, get rid of it and do something else, and then that would really
or pleasure or anything. It could just get out of control.
Yeah.
If you don't have the discipline, which you're a wizard. So
Discipline.
You do. You are a wizard, so you have the discipline. That's the difference.
I guess, it would kind of add to it if it took 100 years to learn how to control time, then you're already maybe wiser than you would be.
Probably not fuck that up.
Immediately you reverse it and you start where you started. Like, now that I got all that down, start from square one with all my knowledge.
I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, your mind, I feel like, can't wrap around the infinite possibilities of being able to control time. Like you could just
it's not a
you could redo anything.
Thing, no. Yeah, it's hard to
never die, and you would never, and it'd be weird. It'd be really weird. It'd be a weird one.
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely strange.
We're not meant to have a quick save function in our lives, even though I dream about it all the time.
That's a good point. Yeah, we're not meant to. Yep.
Just load it. I did this wrong thing. Just go back, do it again. Or this guy's
Or
being
like-
a real dick to me. I really want to punch him in the face and call him a piece of shit, but I can't do that. I could just save it, do that. The consequences come up, reverse it, go back.
Yep.
Oh, that'd be
You
so
don't grow as a person, but it sure feels great.
Yeah, it'd feel good in the moment, but it wouldn't grow you as a person. That's true.
No, but you would win. So, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. You'd definitely win.
You would always win.
If you have a key
The most important
tasks
thing
or,
is winning.
like small term goals, like we need to win this battle, like us versus them. You are going to win
Every time.
So have you guys ever heard of the I don't mean to switch topics so quickly, but have you guys ever heard of Warhammer before?
Mm-hmm.
I think no, I don't know. No, I'm
So talking about wizards, I hope you don't mind if I, kind of talk about this.
What's
But I
the-
think the
Not at all. Go ahead.
Warhammer world is really interesting. I love the Warhammer world. So there's two.
That's the wizard I would have had on my list.
Oh, really? Wow, nice.
No, that I wouldn't have had. I wouldn't even
Oh,
thought
okay.
of the Warhammer.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
I only
So-
know about Warhammer, the future version. I don't know about the
Yes.
the
So
real
Warhammer
version.
40K. So there's two versions of
Yeah,
it.
that's the one
There's
I
a-
know about. Yeah.
There's a fantasy version, and then there's a more futuristic version, and it's a really
The
fun.
sci-fi version.
Yeah, exactly. It started out as a tabletop game, which was really interesting, and
Much like D&D.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a lot more little miniatures to it. So you have huge blocks, and it's really creative because you can paint them however you want. And I love, in my opinion, me and my brother love the futuristic Warhammer 40K. The fantasy kind is your typical, fantasy kind. There's orcs, there's dwarfs, there's elves. It's your typical fantasy, game.
All the hits.
But, yeah, exactly. But the futuristic kind is very interesting because it's set in space, and I think they have a good take on it. And what I find interesting about the futuristic aspect of it is, me and my brother love playing this tabletop.
You don't
game.
usually think of sci-fi when you think of wizards. You always
No,
think
you
it has to be in
don't.
the past
You don't
with
at all.
swords and sandals.
Exactly.
But there's no reason why it has to be always in the past. I mean, why can't it be in the present or the future?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what my main point was going to be that I was bringing up, because I really don't know where I was going with that. Was there's a futuristic
Sorry, I just
aspect.
wanted to
Yeah.
tag that.
No,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
You're helping me out here. There's a futuristic aspect of wizardry powers as well, which I think is very interesting and involves space. And I think we should explore more as humans, they have this really cool game type where it involves all these powers that these wizards have involve different space elements. So one of the powers is, a meteor that comes in and just wreaks havoc on the battlefield, and it's a really interesting aspect that I never thought about until I played this game was, moving forward as humans, what are some of the capabilities of space that we can learn about scientifically, but could be also interesting to learn about, I don't know, mystical, and I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think
I hear you.
I can kind of see where
You
you're
know what
going.
I'm
That's
saying?
an interesting aspect of it. It doesn't have to be spell books in the old world things.
Yeah.
I mean, we really could be outside of science fiction. We really could be wizards in our own world, especially in the future. As technology advances and we explore deeper and deeper into the galaxy and have more technology that can accomplish things that we're not capable of doing in the past. I mean, aren't you a wizard if you can have an iPhone today? If you went back there, you can learn
No,
about
it's
every
true.
goddamn thing in the world. You'd be like a genius, being a wizard, as it were. So what would it mean to be a wizard into the future where you have these capabilities of things that humans would be completely incapable of earlier? I don't think it's out of the question that we could do something in the future, like take a meteor, redirect it, hit someone else with it. There's your magic right there. Take that.
It's the ultimate, because just like the four elements, I mean, the most powerful anything is using nature. You know that if you can summon a hurricane,
the forces of nature, yeah.
Smaller thing, whatever it is, then you have an asteroid. It's the ultimate, absolutely. So if you're in space and you can move the landscape has changed drastically. You really get to use those things now. It's pretty cool.
For sure, yeah. But yeah, so is there an example of like a particular wizard in Warhammer that you thought was notable or worth making the list of the wizards we're talking about?
I mean, for me, I personally love humankind. I think that's
get off your high horse.
I know.
Human lover.
In all fantasy worlds, that's the kind that's always struggling against whatever dominating force is overtaking at that time. So it's a very
fallible, usually very fallible,
yeah, exactly.
Very brave.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a wizard / emperor in this world that's called Sigmar. And, he comes from a long lineage of powerful emperors and powerful weather type wizards. So they control the elements,
controlling
like
the weather. Yeah.
Yes, which I really like. And I love when it comes to translating to the 40K world. I love specifically the 40K Grey Knights, which is a detachment from the humankind. So you have all these different detachments. So you have the regular humans that just kind of fight and protect their realm. And then you have this special kind that kind of oversees the religious aspect of the realm. Yeah. And they're called the Grey Knights, and they kind of fight against the demons and things like that. So Sigmar is a part of that world, and he becomes emperor of this humankind. And yeah, he's so powerful, and I love him because he just fights all the orcs and specifically the demons. So he was a big pioneer when it came to this big betrayal when it came to the two factions of this kind. So there was the humans, and then there was a detachment of the chaos humans that ended up rebelling against the regular humans. And
the two separate segments being like the chaos and then the Imperium.
The order and things like that.
Yeah, like the order in the world, and then the chaos in the world. Yeah, and the chaos has to do with all these demons coming in.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
In that universe, as far as I understand it, that magic, it doesn't just come from like learning books and reading spells. There actually is a separate dimension which has all this fucked up shit. And if you can tap into that, you can start to utilize it. But the more you utilize that, the more you're getting in touch with that fucked up, crazy world that brings in all these demons and all other kinds of crazy shit, which a lot of people believe is true in the world today. The same people who are persecuting people doing magic in the past are like, you're tapping into this darkness that you don't need to be a part of. And I believe you actually can use magic, but that's not good. So we have to kill you.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, Sigmar is this human wizard emperor that fights for the good of mankind. And yeah, he wants to make sure that the human race exists and continues to exist in this Warhammer world. And yeah, that's what I love about Sigmar specifically, because he has all these powers. He has a sick Warhammer that has lightning abilities, and he just like can smash the ground and kill like everything around him, which is sick. And yeah, he's a pretty cool wizard.
So Matt, do you in my own life, I always seek out a lot of different sources of motivation and stuff like this. You read a lot, right?
Yep.
Yeah. This sounds like primarily what you read, this type of stuff, right?
Well, I think he's played a lot of the game in particular.
Well,
Yeah,
the game,
yeah, no.
well, yeah, exactly. But do you use this as like your internal voice for motivation for just getting stuff done? Like.
No, I think you're right. That's a good point that you bring up.
I think it's like a hidden superpower of people like you, because we're a little different when it comes to this stuff. I think that it's like a really
homeschool kids.
No, but I think this is really cool. Like, is this does this add to your internal monologue for like being successful, doing what you love, hard moments in your life, that type of stuff? I mean, it sounds like the perils that the things that you decide to spend your time on, the stories of the people that you decide to kind of read about and inspire yourself with, they sound like they probably apply to your everyday life, right?
No, that's a good point, Dylan. Actually, I've always projected myself in the books of these characters that I've read, and I think that's definitely helped me in life personally. I've always pictured myself as these heroic wizardry type not antagonist, protagonist, is that the word? Protagonist, I think it's like you said, I think it's definitely helped me in my everyday life, especially because I spent a lot of time reading about these characters, one of the characters that I love growing up that I've read about was this character named Dor. And he was a part of this book series that I called was book series of Xanth. And he was interesting because you didn't really know what his character was. But whatever situation he was in, he always saw the bright side of whatever the outlook was, and it's something that I definitely try and bring into my own life. And what's interesting, and I hope you guys don't mind spoilers,
No.
But his power ultimately was he was resistant to every type of magic around him, which I thought was very interesting. Because he was able to kind of.
So he wasn't actually a magic user himself. He just happened to be resistant to everything else.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so he was able to have a unique perspective on every person, and everything that was happening in that world. And all the books that I've read and all the video games that I've kind of taken in, that I've played, you're right, Dylan and Joe. I've tried to kind of take that into my own life and, learn from certain situations that I've had in my own life, and kind of learn from that and kind of grow from that for sure.
I think that's awesome. It's almost like this unpredictable superpower that you have that people can't quite pinpoint, and it comes from. Again, I two things come to mind is that like I loved Magic Treehouse books when I was a kid. They're my favorite books of all time.
Oh yeah, Magic Treehouse.
Yeah, they're not based in reality at all. Obviously, they go into this treehouse, and then it takes off and they go to a different planet. It's a little different, but I really loved those books. And then I thought I'd like them, so I got Pete's Dragon. And then from Pete's Dragon, then my aunt, who was a teacher, she thought that I'd like this, and then I realized that I didn't like Pete's Dragon, and for some reason it was just too different for me. But I see the common theme in these books, and they all sort of related. They're all magic. Is that they have a challenge in their life, which is reality for them, and they apply what you said is either being resistant to the negative side of life, or kind of finding a different solution to a hard problem that most people face, thinking outside the box, thinking outside the treehouse, thinking outside of the dragon, so to speak. And you're doing that exactly based off of, because you immerse yourself in this stuff, and I think it's really cool. And I don't think a lot of people
Agreed.
apply it in everyday situations. I mean, I don't know you, but I feel like I do. But you seem to always be smiling. You think positively. You have a lot of things going on, and that isn't just there for any reason. It's because you did this for yourself, through your background, your culture, your education, your whatever it is, and what you read. It's pretty sweet. I think it's awesome.
No, thanks,
Yeah.
man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Don't ever
sure.
change, man. Don't. This is good.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's definitely, there's a lot to be said, and a lot to come from this that I don't think I saw before I talked to you, like in the world around me.
Lightning.
Yeah.
So on that lovely note, I think that was very succinct to that whole section there. But I would be remiss if before we did final thoughts, I couldn't bring up my favorite wizard of all time. I'm wearing this shirt right now because I got Calcifer on me right now.
Bring it up. Like more.
Nice. Castle in the sky. I love it.
Okay, all right. I just crossed my barrier.
Yeah, there he is. Right, he's in my pocket. He's a fire demon himself, Calcifer. But my favorite wizard of all time is Howl from Howl's Moving Castle. Not just because, much like Gandalf, his magic isn't so defined that like he can do like this, that, and the other thing. He can do fire, or he can do ice. He can do like all kinds of weird shit, but he doesn't overuse his abilities. And the main thrust of the movie is that he is a magical person who like kind of wants to do his own thing and be left alone. He even has a castle that is always on the move, like a nomad, that you can't find him anywhere. And he goes under different names to try to stay under the radar. They look for him as all these different names. They think there's like 7 or 8 different wizards, but they're all just him. It's all Howl. And there's a giant war going on, and they're trying to take all the magic users in the nation to try to get on their side and be like, we're going to use you to kill them because you have magic. And he just doesn't want to be any part of it. And as the movie goes on, you learn more and more about him, and just he wants to just do his own thing and be his own person. And he ends up falling in love with this old lady who turns out to be actually a cursed young girl. Spoilers on that. But I love his character because even though he seems so aloof, and he has to learn to like actually really give a shit about people because he just wants to be his own guy, I really think his character was cool as fuck. And when he's faced with actually meeting face to face with the person who you think it would be the king is not the one in charge. It's the head mage there. And she's the one really pulling the strings, trying to get everyone who does magic to join the war and kill for them. And he just won't be part of it. And she shows up there to meet her face to face, and he's only there just to check in. It's like, I did my time. I'm punching in the clock and I'm out of here. That's the thing I had to do. And you go, no. Now that you're here, sign up for the war. You're all out. And you go, I'm fucking out. And she tries to use it against him. You're a monster. You're that and the other thing. And he just won't go along with it. I just think he's cool as hell. Howl is my favorite wizard of all time, even though he's kind of not that strong, kind of weird, but he's just the best. I love him.
Well, that's a good choice. I like that.
I guess I kind of relate to him some ways, but it doesn't hurt to have a fire demon under your thumb all the time, running your castle for you.
Doesn't. Where'd you get the shirt?
I just ordered it online. I also thought that it would be like, because it looked like it was a picture of an actual pocket, and then the fire is in the pocket. There's no pocket. It's just a picture of a pocket. When I got it, I'm like, well, that's kind of lame. I thought it was like a pocket, and then the background was the fire demon, Calcifer, but actually it's just a painted on pocket. It doesn't actually exist.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Also, Dylan, for I know you haven't seen the movie, he's voiced by Billy Crystal. So picture Mike Wazowski being like, "How? What the hell's wrong with you? Just cook some breakfast. I'm hungry over here.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's
Oh, that's
Christian
so-
Bale is Hal and Billy Crystal is Calcifer, and it's pretty great.
So wait, Billy Crystal is Mike Wazowski?
Wait a minute, you didn't even know that part? Yeah. Oh, and I'm gonna blow your mind again.
Wait,
Fred
serious?
Flintstone, Cloverfield Lane. He's Sully. He's Sully from Monsters Inc. So take a second.
All right, we got to talk about that another time. That's too crazy. Nope, didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
Nope, news to me.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
something. That's funny.
Absolutely.
Nice. No, that's a good choice. I was hoping someone would choose a wizard type character from the Studio Ghibli films. So that's a
Yeah,
good-
I mean, there's so many versions of it, but yeah, for me, Hal is bar none my favorite. He's the shit.
nice.
My if anyone asks, my wizard is
Please, yeah. That's sorry we didn't ask you already.
Dino.
Anyways, fuck you. Going on.
Anyways, fuck you. That's the podcast. Everyone go fuck yourself.
That's the podcast. I'm doing the outro this week because fuck Dylan. No, sorry. Go ahead, Dylan.
No, because I gotta do. I don't know. It sounds so not thought out at all. But I think it's Rasputin again. He comes in at so many different things
Rasputin.
because
Tell
I
us
just
why
can't
Rasputin's your favorite
believe
wizard.
this.
Yeah,
this
what
fucking-
wizard
And it's not because of his
powers
giant
does he have
cock,
that I
is it?
didn't
Because
know
that's a
about?
good enough idea. Well, he has the power of persuasion. Mr.
Yeah,
Wotton. He
well,
has
that's the thing. But
immense
he's,
power of
he's
persuasion.
regarded as like the most modern day version of a wizard. And people came to him with problems, and they looked for like an alternative solution to like a bunch of fucked up shit, and he was their guy. But I also believe
Yeah.
there's a little
Famously,
bit
the Romanov son had hemophilia, so anytime he was cut, he'd bleed to death. And
Yeah.
Rasputin was the only one who could make him feel better. And he was this pauper
Yeah.
who became a member of the royal family. He was basically like your version of the druid, the homeless hermit in the woods learning magic, and he's actually honing his skills at being a flim flam snake oil salesman. Worked his way all the way up to the royal family of a major monarchy, and was, I mean, I don't want to step on your shit, Dylan, but
No,
that's how
please.
right he got
You're
there.
better at describing this than I am, but I have a question for you once you're done.
Oh yeah, he ended up, becoming a major mover and shaker in the Russian Empire, and also allegedly, boning the king's wife over there.
Everyone,
He kept him
boning
around
everyone.
no matter what. And they actually have his legendary phallus in a jar still today.
Yeah. So, but here's the one question that I have for you, Joe. So, yeah, penis in a jar. All
Please.
right. So, what if he didn't? So you make it sound like he's malicious, right?
I think that I don't think he's necessary. Oh, I think he is malicious. Yeah, that's fair. That's
Okay.
fair.
All right. Just want to check. So,
yeah,
yeah.
I was going to talk way out of it, but no, yeah, I think he is. Yeah. Well, I think it's selfishness. And selfishness often leads to maliciousness because when you're selfish, oftentimes you're hurting others. I don't think he went out to hurt people just for the sake of hurting them, but he wanted to keep gaining more power and influence for himself. And a lot of times that means being malicious.
The one thing that's not being talked about is what if he thought he wasn't being? What if he actually thought he was helpful? So that's what gets me the most interested, is that this guy's from Eastern Siberia. I mean, I don't know if you know, Matt, but he's from like way out in the boonies in Russia. Like the towns that have 30, populations of 30 people over like 1 million square feet. I mean, like, that
right.
type
You can
of-
hardly call it a town. It's more of like a settlement in the middle of the wilderness, but it has a name.
Yeah, for the most part. And then he would make journeys back and forth to St. Petersburg or whatever it was called back then, and to the Romanov Empire, and there was like 1 million of them, whatever it was, and he basically worked his way up to that point because people trusted him and believed in him. So I know from experience, because as a salesperson, I've come across a lot of people I don't like, and those people seem to be like him, and they are able to very
Other
quick-
salespeople, you mean, not your customers.
some of them aren't, but the ones that I don't trust are really too good too quick, and I don't like that.
You gotta wait a second before you roll that snake out of your trousers. Everyone's been talking about, right, Rasputin?
Yeah, right.
Build up
So-
to it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, for real, but I just so like I kind of just feel like he's somewhere in the middle. This didn't happen overnight with him. And two, maybe he did have something else out there. Maybe there was something different. I mean, people, like we said, paganism specifically is a very broad term. It's not a religion. It's just like a broad,
right.
it's a broad identification for people who weren't Christian for like 1,000 years, if not two. So, um, what if there was something else to this? And that's why I think about him as I go, why this
Ooh.
fucking guy from the middle of nowhere?
Mhm.
And
He's definitely amazingly impressive. Whether or not he had true mystical powers or not, there's no arguing his accomplishments and what he did. So maybe there is something more to that he did claim.
yeah, there's I don't know. And at the very least, you just meet a guy. So whether everybody believes or not, or who's a full of shit or not, if he was standing in front of you today, you'd have a lot of questions. You'd be interested to just have that guy say something. There's only a few people in life who can stand in front of you and go, I just want you to talk. Like, I just want to hear what it is, like something. This is that guy. I don't know. And he, again, modern day wizard to, being able to have cures to ailments and stuff like this. And I'm just a little bit interesting guy. And it's not like he was the most, like, I don't know, attractiveness is different, but like for the women and stuff like that, like what did he have?
They loved him.
They loved
him. Loved him.
What was it?
We'll throw up a picture of Rasputin right now. I think I might already have one from an old podcast.
Yeah, he looks like a fucking freak. I mean, like,
but
it's weird. It's weird.
He
stuff.
was so supposedly the only one who could do so many things that people couldn't do. And number one with a bullet is taking care of their sick son. Whenever Rasputin was around, the kid stopped being sick. Whenever Rasputin left, kid mysteriously was ailing and maybe about to die a lot of the time. So
I mean, it could be just premature Reiki because people have there is
premature
Reiki, and on top of that, also
as soon as I'm getting started, the crystal just smashes all over the table. Like, oh, this never happens to me.
I don't know. Premature Reiki is what I'm thinking. This is premature as in early days, and also just on an ending note on Rasputin, it took a lot to kill that guy. I mean, they tried to kill the
that is my next example.
They tried so hard to kill
not
him.
Die.
They tried so hard. They poisoned him like with a fucking ton of it. How many times they shoot him? What, 5 times?
Yes.
He was riddled with bullets.
Riddled.
5?
Yeah. So they really worked hard to make sure.
And they dumped his body in the fucking river.
Yeah.
He wouldn't die.
No, exactly. Yeah.
They really tried. And at the end of the day, I mean, he might have just got all of them killed. I don't know. But we don't really know. I mean, there's a lot.
There's also the part that he basically had the Romanov family murdered to save his own ass.
Yeah, and that's not good. But it's just it's fascinating.
It's Ooby-Dooby and black magic, brother. Yeah. Just on the black magic.
Yeah. They made a documentary about this called Anastasia in 1992.
Yeah, it's a great. It was right after Fievel Goes West came out. They made Anastasia.
Yeah, yep. Anastasia, the documentary cartoon. For anyone who wants to know,
it's an animated documentary. Bardock.
Animated documentary called Anastasia. Yep.
Wasn't too popular.
Yep, very popular.
Well, did you hear about this crazy story? This isn't a thing with wizardry, but this crazy story. So Hitler's personal doctor was Dr.
I already like how it started.
So far, so good.
Speaking of wizards, anyways, Hitler.
No, his
doctor.
I think his main doctor was, I think, is
Monroe
Dr. or something like that.
Wait.
So
Dr.
right,
Mengele
Joe, shut up.
So right before he was supposed to meet with the Italian prime minister at the time. Who was the Italian prime minister?
Mussolini.
Yeah, Mussolini, right?
Mussolini.
He was so fucked up. So Hitler was so fucked up. He had his doctor inject him with something called, literally, because his doctors had to write down everything that he was prescribed and injected with. It was literally called X, right?
Chemical
and
X.
That's
how he became a Powerpuff Girl.
Yeah. And it was insane. He was literally, so I think maybe where he was staying was bombed or something like that. So he was not supposed to meet, the prime minister of Italy, and he was injected by his doctor with whatever this X was. And it was just insane because they don't know to this day what was Hitler injected to, and it's just insane. And I don't know. I think maybe his doctor had some, otherworldly powers. I don't know. He kept Hitler going for a very long time, so longer than I think that Hitler should have been alive. So
I
don't know.
agree. You know what? That's a bold statement, but I agree. He should have been alive
thank
way
you.
less long than he did.
Yes, thank you.
I know it's a crazy idea, but I happen to agree with you on that. He should have died sooner.
Thank you. So I don't know. I think his doctor maybe had some powers. I don't know.
I think amphetamines had a lot to do with it. Dylan,
Well, specifically, Joe, is called Pervitin. And
just the Panzer chocolate or whatever they call it.
the Wehrmacht's secret sauce, aka yes.
Yeah.
And
Get up and go, mommy's little helper.
Yeah, go watch the videos of the 1939 Olympics, and Hitler's like he's just like fucked.
A lot of them were on
because he was. It wasn't that he was on amphetamines. It was specifically because amphetamine. Anyone have Adderall here? I do. Like prescription. I mean, I get it. I have it. Like, to me, it's not illegal. And it said my bottle just says amphetamine. So it's not.
Amphetamine
so
doesn't mean methamphetamine. That's a different kind.
No, but Pervitin is
stimulant.
Pervitin is methamphetamine.
Gotcha.
100%. The difference between Adderall and Hitler drugs is that Hitler and his troops in the army and everything else were actually taking meth.
Yeah.
Like they were meth powered army. That's what they were. So back to what Matt was saying about X, God knows what that was. I do know that Hitler had a flatulence problem, and you can trace this is a fact. This isn't bullshit.
I didn't know that. Really?
And he's a vegetarian, so you think his diet would be more regular, but
I know, right? Yeah, he's a vegetarian, aka fiber.
Maybe he had the nervous farts, and he actually didn't like public speaking as much as it made seem.
Hey, a lot of them don't, but overall, you can track where Hitler is based off of his bottles of fart meds. It's true. It's true. Go watch Hunting Hitler in Argentina. They're like, hey, there's a lot of bottles of this one fart medication everywhere, and they're like, where he would be. Yeah. No, like it's probably Hitler, but we don't know. Like he might have escaped Germany because of
Who
all
else
the fart
not
meds.
only is diagnosed with
Gallons.
fart medication, but also can afford to keep buying it in Argentina. I mean,
Yeah. It's just a fascinating thing. So whatever X was, I mean, if they were taking meth back 80 years ago, it could have been God knows what drug. Who has any idea?
So what was crazy about the X was, my main point was they didn't know what revived him. He was supposed to die from this blast that happened in, I think it was Italy or Germany. I don't know, right before he was supposed to meet, Mussolini, like you said.
Yeah.
And, his doctor just prescribed Monroe to him. It revived him. So I don't know. I think his doctor may have had some weird powers. That's
some witchcraft.
Sounds like it. Yeah, some weird, like potent homeopathic wizardry.
Some
that got
demonic
him
shit.
back online. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Craziness.
That's by powers unclean and unknown from beyond the pale. Who knows?
Yep.
You know how to get shit done, I'll tell you that.
Yep. Glad he's dead.
Get him out. As much as it pains me to say, I respect the hell out of Rasputin a lot more than that guy.
Yeah, which
they
a lot
both
of
have the
people
gift
don't.
of gab, but one of them used it a lot less lethally.
Yeah, and he didn't try to take over anything besides personal power. Maybe
besides
that's
Russia,
what he did. Yeah, right.
Besides the biggest land country in the entire globe.
It doesn't sound like he wanted to be the czar or be the
Yeah, no,
king,
Rasputin was a pussy in the end.
He is the head, though. I don't think he wanted to be the king. It's easier to be the worm tongue than the Saruman to bring that.
That is a fact. That is definitely true. But also,
that's true.
I mean, when I think of Rasputin, I think of worm tongue. It's like the same character to me. I know that no one loves him, but to me, he's worm tongue.
The Romanov, the male who was really the Tsar Nicholas
Alexander or Nicholas.
It's Nicholas.
He
was wildly incompetent, so he just sought the advice of everybody. So that is also another thing as well, is that like he was like, hey, tell me what to do. I don't know, what do I do in this situation? I don't have the experience. I'm like 25 or whatever he was. Like it was not good.
that is the danger in being born into power, right? That some people just they don't want to uphold it. Where if you have something like when people get elected into power, you're guaranteed everyone who gets elected is striving for power and wants responsibility and wants the commitment, which I think is kind of a fucked up version of it because everyone who gets voted for already loves power, which I don't like. I like voting the person in the room that you think is the best manager of the group
Yeah.
and making them do it even if they don't want to. And if they don't want to do it, even better, because that means they're going to do it the right way rather than the person who goes, I should be in charge. It's like, I don't know. You're not in charge then. The very fact that you want to be, it's so bad makes you think that you're not going to be great at it. But in monarchies and, shit like that, you're just born into it. So people like Nicholas show up and then it sometimes happens that they're not the best king and they're more susceptible to other outside.
Hey, don't forget, King Tut was 16 when he died. So just saying.
And
It's
he
a
died in
great
a
example.
skateboarding accident, snapped his knee right off.
Famous skateboarding accident at the Van.
He was trying to
Skate Park.
grind the entire pyramid of Giza and he almost
thing.
made it.
Yep. Almost.
Yeah.
So
We didn't have
close.
cell phones then, so no one got footage of it. But the tails
Damn.
and the hieroglyphs, it was like
So
bird,
sick.
wheel, skeleton.
Rocket ship, UFO.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. The deep cuts. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
we
I
go around
mean,
the horn and give our last final thoughts on Wizards here. Do you want to start us off, Matt, being our guest?
oh yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I think for me, when I think about Wizards, I honestly think I put myself in the perspective of someone that's trying to attain something, and a wizard comes along and kind of gives me guidance, that's what I really like about wizards and stories and movies that I've watched and read is there are these characters that come along and they give you perspective and guidance and being able to allow you to attain certain things that you want to attain. And I really like that about wizards. And that's why I've always been fascinated in researching and reading about and playing video games that involve wizards. And that's why I've always loved playing as wizards personally, because they're these characters that kind of have a different perspective on normal life, as you would say, I guess. I don't know if that's good enough.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. That's a succinct point. And that's a good way
Did I fuck up?
No,
Not even close. No, I'm just jealous because it's like I might just say that's what Matt said. Like I mean it.
Well, that's against the rules. You can't do that. But no, that's very well said, Matt. Because I don't really think of wizards that way. I went into this thinking like, wizards get the guy in the beard, the magic powers, all that stuff. But really, within this conversation, it really stuck out to me that it's more of a mentor and teaching you things in that sort of way, and it comes from that base of wisdom and wizard, which Dylan brought up earlier, which he said that I said, but I never even fucking thought of the idea that those two went together so well. But obviously, that's where it comes from, right? It's a good point.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's the patience and the learning and willing to be part of it. It's almost like if you wanted to be a wizard to have magic and shoot lightning out of your asshole, you wouldn't be able to do it. It's the very journey and the patience and learning that makes you capable in that way. You can't just put on a magic ring and become a Superman or a wizard or magic. You have to. It's the discipline and the learning that gets you there. And that's why shit like Harry Potter sucks and Lord of the Rings rules.
I agree.
And
you got to learn your way.
Episode 1, season 1.
yeah. Adventure Time. We didn't even bring up the Witch or the Ice King. Ice King, another great wizard.
Thank you. I want to see if you would know. It was the Ice King drum set. Good episode.
Oh, damn. What's his name? God, it's fantastic. The Ice King. Is that your final thoughts on Wizards, Dylan, you think?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I agree with you guys both. Yeah, it's basically that whole thing is that I have always thought of Wizards as this cool thing with magic, and you can learn to do this whole ideal, and I want to be this powerful person, but I guess it really is more of like the teaching idea of it. And It's more like Luke Skywalker and Yoda, man. Luke Skywalker goes in there, he goes, I already know how to use a lightsaber. I'm a great pilot. What the fuck can you teach me that I don't already know? I only did this because my dead father figure told me I have to go here and learn from your stupid old ass. And when you first show up, he's this crazy little Muppet who's whacking him with a stick and asking for food. And you go, oh, this crazy old guy in the woods doesn't know shit about anything. Smash cut 2. He's lifting an entire spaceship out of the swamp with the power of his mind. He goes, what do you think I was telling you this? Paraphrasing. What I've been telling you this whole time, dickhead. I told you, you got to be patient. You got to clear your mind. You got to learn. It's going to take a little while. And the very fact that you're putting your mind in your body through this experience is what attains that power. The wizards that exist in our world, I don't think have magical potions or any ability to change time or raise the dead. I think what they have is that the X factor, it's not in the syringe, it's in the psyche, which is that you become more powerful through your patience and your learning than you could be without it. And the very fact that you're giving your mind that space and giving your whole life that little extra elbow room makes you more powerful and wise more than anyone else. And you going out and showing it off is not being a wizard. It's when people come to you and they're willing to learn that you're willing to pass on that knowledge and
and like any good martial.
Wow, that's a sick way to put it. That's awesome.
It's perfect, Joe.
Want to close it out?
Let's close it out. I mean, I got nothing to say besides pretty much everything you guys said, and that wizardry is like martial arts. It's the ability to withhold rather than to give in. And it takes time to be able to learn that discipline. And it is a discipline because it's one of the only disciplines that isn't just achievement based, it's age based. So another important factor that we didn't cover here yet is that there aren't any, 29-year-old wizards there. They typically are up there because there's so much more that you can't even understand or predict. That just comes with age, and it's one of those things too. So it's a combination of everything we talk about. With adversity builds strength. At times adversity equals strength. Adversity times like time equals strength, as opposed to just adversity equals strength, or adversity plus discipline, or adversity plus training or practice. It's like the ultimate. It's all those combined.
You gotta have all of it.
Yep, gotta have all that. So that's my 2 cents on what I think of them. I think it's a good thing.
Oh.
And that's it, guys. So we're wrapping this baby.
So let's cast a spell on our audience here and give them the old sleeping spell that Merlin had and shut their minds off.
On
completely.
you. Do it up.
Thank you so much for coming on, Matt. I really appreciate you coming on. I couldn't ask anybody better to come on and talk about wizards with us.
Oh man,
I really do appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm really grateful that you guys would have me to talk about wizards. That's really awesome. So thanks again.
Yeah, and we'll have you back.
Nice.
One of our favorite guests. We love having you on here. You jive.
Favorite guest yet, Mr. Wotton.
Oh, really? Nice. Yeah, no, I tried to convince Angela to come on with me, but I mean, she's on with her. She doesn't like being in front of the camera, and she's at like a girls' weekend thing. So
yeah, she's having fun. Maybe next time.
Come on if she doesn't want to. I'm glad to come on though, because when you first told me you want to be on the podcast, I was psyched. I'm like, all right, great, we can get Matt on.
Nice.
Yeah, I was pumped. I saw pictures of your guys' wedding and stuff like that, and I was like, we need to have that.
Nice.
Yeah, I can't believe. I mean, obviously it makes sense that you guys wouldn't have met until now, but I was like, I can't believe that I talk about you all the time, Matt, and then Dylan's like, oh yeah, it's Angela's husband. He seems really cool. I'm like, oh yeah, he's great, but he never got to meet you, so it's a cool version of doing that.
Yeah. No, this has been awesome. It's nice meeting you, Dylan, and this has been really awesome to talk about wizards.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And we'll have you back on soon. Our favorite thing is having guests, and
nice.
Awesome. We can't wait to hear your perspective on all sorts of different things. So
nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Want to bring us out, Dylan?
Yeah, let's do it. So everybody, that's the Dylan and Joe Basement Magic Wizard podcast with one of our favorite guests and leading experts on the topic, Matt Wotton, and we'll see you guys next week. We're Dylan, and
I'm the sorcerer from beyond the grave, Joseph.
and we'll see you guys next week.
Misty morning, clouds in the sky, without warning.
And he's in the row in front of us, and he's kneeling down. And as soon as he goes to kneel down, like kneel right behind him, and he just rips one super loud to the point where it wasn't like a squeak, it was like a roar. And we know it's him. And not only are we now losing our shit, trying not to laugh, he turns around and looks at us. He turned and looked.
He's able to not laugh and just stare at us.
He's scolding you guys.
We fucking lost it.
Wait, Billy Crystal's Mike Wazowski?
Wait a minute, you didn't even know that part? Yeah.
Well, if you guys are like feeling really down, and sometimes when you're down, you want just like something depressing to watch, that's what you need to watch.
That's not usually what I want to watch when I'm down.
Well, no,
get
sometimes
it.
you're like, I just want to like feel it more.
Yeah, it's cathartic. You have to like break through the other
Like
side.
I want to watch something fucked up. That's what you should watch.
I got that, yeah.
It sucks.
Crazy story. So Hitler's personal doctor was Dr.
I already like how it started.
So far, so good.
Speaking of wizards, anyways, yeah,
Hitler.
No, his
Doctor.
I think his main doctor was, I think, it's
You know, it's
Monroe
Dr.
or something like that.
But it's
Wait.
So
Dr.
right-
Mengele.
Joe,
So
Joe,
right-
shut up.
So right before he was
Real heroes don't do drugs.